What movie I was watching, but it was talking about how the American diet is so it neglects bitters, and bitters are what helps to detox the body. So it's trying to get our palates more acquainted with that taste, because it does shock you at first. You're like, ugh, and but it's so good for our bodies to have these more of a bitter tasting plants. And especially with the general population's diet the way it is, we need to have those detoxing nutrients in our bodies.
We do, and that's why, like the ones that we mentioned earlier, the burdock, the dandelion, those are very bitter and astringent to the body, and that's part of the reason why they're so good for us.
Yeah.
And it's so important to get those in your diet, and you'd be amazed when you start to consume them on a regular basis how your taste buds start to change. Things that bothered you in the past, maybe you're not craving the sweet so much anymore, or that bitter doesn't taste so bitter after a couple tries. So sassafras is a tree, and the leaves have three variations. This goosefoot style leaf, this rounder leaf, and a leaf with only 1 foot type of thing. That one's a little messed up.
It's interesting that there can be all three variations on the same tree and not like as separate plants itself.
Exactly. So that's something that is also kind of throws people off when they're starting to learn. So this used to be used to make root beer.
Root beer.
And I think it still is in traditional style root beers, although the main root beer that we find now, I believe, is they're using a synthetic type of flavoring. This is a very controversial plant actually, because saffrole oil can be extracted from the root, and it was actually banned by the FDA in the 1960s. And with further research, I found that it's possibly used as a truth serum or used to make ecstasy and MDMA. So this plant was used traditionally for many, many decades, if not longer, as a tea. And it's really great, again, for urinary tract disorders, swelling of the sinuses, the lungs and the bronchioles, helps to regulate blood pressure, and it also helps with gout.
If you don't feel confident about what certain plants are, wear gloves. Because gloves could save a life if you don't know what you're picking at.
There's a plant that grows usually very close to poison ivy that actually helps soothe poison ivy. It's called jewelweed, and I'm looking for some. I can't find any right now. But that plant, you can literally take it if you think you've been exposed to poison ivy and rub it all over you in its raw form. It can also be made into a salve, topical ointments like that. But it's another good thing to know. If you have an issue, sometimes there's a plant nearby that can help you reverse the symptoms in enough time. Leaf, I think.
Mustard leaf.
So it's a really beautiful leaf, and what I do is I make this into like kale chips.
Really?
Yep, I just drizzle it with some oil and salt and bake it in the oven until it's nice and crispy. And it's pretty delicious. Unfortunately, of course, they shrivel down a lot.
Yeah.
But something like this, I mean, this is pretty crazy all over the place. So if I were to harvest like almost all of this here, I know that the plant would still thrive. And you could smell it. It smells slightly like mustardy.
Oh
or just
my
has like
goodness.
that smell, of course, but
That smells so good though.
you can imagine how tasty it is if a kale chip is
Yeah,
delicious.
it's like flavored already.
Yep, you can put whatever you want on it, and you can see how there's like all variations of sizes of the plant. So you could see this one is like a new sprout of the horsetail. And this is also an astringent herb that has diuretic properties, really great for kidneys, again, edema and fluid retention, even hair loss, weight loss, heavy periods, also a lot of lung issues. This is just one style of, or one type of horsetail as well. There is giant horsetail,
Oh.
and that is much bigger than this. Almost is the size of a sugar cane.
A sugar cane?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Maybe not as tall, but as thick.
I guess for those who are watching, what would you recommend in terms of like any books? Any good books?
So the Peterson's guides, they have like a guide for almost any type of foraging. Anything that says, depending on what area you're in, there'll be like a medicinal plants of the Northeast, or wild edible plants of the Northeast, or whatever area you're in.
Yeah.
And look for something that has a visual of the plant, something that gives you how to use the plant. I have a whole bunch of different books. And again, there's some different websites too, some very well-known foraging experts, Wildman Steve Brill, Susan Weed, another one of my favorites. And what I'll do is I will Google medicinal uses for cleavers, Susan Weed.
Okay.
And then she'll have a bunch of articles that come up. And you can start to use the field guides, which is really great to take out with you while you're looking for the plants. And then when you return home, you can look up a little bit more in depth of what and how to use the plants.
Great. So yes, we'll wrap it up, and thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.